Welcome to another edition, a very special edition of Talkin Hoops with Jason Andera from Midco Sports and Michael McCleary, who we can say is with the Argus leader for the last time. Michael, first of all, just thank you for investing in South Dakota high school hoops over the last 2 years. And you've done a great job of covering and giving some insight and talking to a lot of coaches. And I know I appreciate how much work you've put into it. And I know the people out there have too. For people who don't know, tell us a little bit about what you've got coming up here in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, well, first, it's been a pleasure to cover sports in this state, specifically high school sports. I'm moving on to something that I won't be primarily covering high school sports, so it's something that kind of hit me a little bit last Friday, and I'm extremely sad. I mean, high school sports, especially in this community, are extremely special, and it's been an honor to cover them in this area because this area is growing fast, and it's just the just some of the things I've been able to see in the last year. I mean, it's the best moments I've been able to experience in my professional career. So I'm really appreciative of everything here. But yeah, I'm moving on to Madison, Wisconsin. I'm covering the Badgers men's basketball team, University of Wisconsin. So doing a lot of stuff with University of Wisconsin, and going to excited about the future, but right now living in the moment and ready to talk some high school sports because I get to do that for a couple more days.
That's why we love you, Michael. We're going to stay in the moment and we're going to grill you and get every last bit of information we can out of you before we let you go next week. Let's start by talking some top performers. And this is kind of what we've done over the last couple of weeks. A couple I have to mention off the top. How about Spencer Fernholz? This is a kid who tore up his knee. I mean, he came in as a very impactful freshman 4 years ago, had a good sophomore year, then got injured, missed all of last year, and he's come back on fire with a 28-point game, an 18-point game, a 29-point game in his last 3 games. And he's starting to get his springs back. I mean, we might not talk a lot about Miller and what they've done as a team, but just a lot of props for a kid who's been able to fight back after an injury. It's kind of like maybe a comeback player of the year award or something. I don't know. I respect the kid and just want people to know that he's really been showing off. A couple other top performers I got to talk about. How about a couple of 2020s? We had Isaac Bruns with 28 points, 21 rebounds. I mean, again, we have these games where people are putting these monster numbers up. Michael, how hard is it to get 20 rebounds in a game?
I think harder than 20 points easily. It's especially as a guy like Isaac, who's playing on the perimeter a lot. He's shown some toughness down there, and that's why Dakota Valley is such a good team. They have a lot of guys who are willing to make sort of their offensive game out on the perimeter, but they go in, they crash the boards. Everybody's sort of combining and creating this good defense offensive push. So yeah, it's that's a mark of a good team. That's a mark of a good player who's obviously shooting a lot of threes, but going inside and battling for some boards too.
What a year for Isaac Bruns. He just keeps on doing impressive things. Another 20 rebound game Tuesday night. We had Jenna Vanderweerd of Canton. Definitely want to mention her as well. And then I got to talk about Malik Longy out of Flander Indian. He had his second 50-point game of the year, put up 56 points against Oldham Ramona Rutland. Again, I don't care who you're playing, what gym you're in, what level you're at. You put up 50, and then you do it again twice in the same season, and he's such a good kid. He's overcome a lot. So shout out to Malik Longy for sure.
We've seen a lot of 50-point games this year. It's
We
yeah,
have. We
it's
have.
more than I remember last season. And obviously, we had a couple right in a row where I think it might have been three in a row, but a row meaning in like a single week or 2 weeks time. But it's been a while, but another one too. I mean, it's rare when you get one of them, so that's it's interesting.
Yeah, exactly. And shout out to all those people on that list who continue to put up big performances. And now we're going to turn the page to playoff basketball here very shortly. Let's go in reverse order today. We're going to start in girls B because they're already into their playoffs. and just a couple of regions to watch. A couple of things that I have to, two teams out of each region make it to the Sodak 16. And there's a couple with more than two good teams or two teams that feel like they're good enough to play at that level. And one I want to point out is in 2B. Wolsey Wessington, with their win on Tuesday night, advanced to the next round. They are 18-2, but they also have Arlington, 16-4, Castlewood, who's been ranked this year at 13-7.
Yeah, Arlington and Castlewood have both spent time in my top five throughout the year. Sort of just kind of judging on a week to week basis with matchups and who won, who lost. They've got in my 4 or 5 vote in various points throughout the year. So yeah, I mean, we knew Class B girls basketball was competitive. And Wolsey Wessington has been a top 2 team for me, I believe, all year long. But that's for to think that a top 5 team throughout the year might not be going to the Sodak 16. That's why this time of year is so exciting, I guess, or so scary for some teams.
Exactly. It'll be one to watch. Another region to watch, 3B. Ethan has come on very strong as of recently. Coleman Egan, Howard, and Del Rapids St. Mary. I think, again, we have 4 solid teams coming out of Region 3B, and all of those have, individual players that can take over games. So that will be fun to watch. But Ethan comes in as a favorite there. It'll be interesting to see if they can survive and make it to the Sodak 16. Region 5B, this will be an interesting one too. Does Corsica Stickney, have a shot? They just beat Avon on Tuesday night, and now they're matched up against the number 1 team in the region, Andy Central Dakota Christian, and they got to beat them just to get back to the Sodak 16. This is a team, Corsica Stickney, that's been used to making the state tournament over the last few seasons, and of course, their star player Avery Broughton coming off of a couple of really nasty knee injuries. Talking about comeback player of the year, that's one to talk about.
Yeah, and they've been on a roll lately, and so is Avery. I think she had another 20 and 14 game again yesterday, and she's she's a double machine. Not even just getting a hair over 10 points. It's she's firmly getting these 20-point games and pulling down 10 rebounds. A lot of what Corsica Stickney does runs through her. So, for her to be playing at a high level, that's a good sign for Corsica Stickney. But, I mean, they had a little bit of a slower start to the year, so they have a little bit of an uphill battle here. But, a chance in regions to, kind of rewrite the early part of the season.
Yeah, people didn't realize just how much senior power that team had last year because Avery kind of was the showcase player, but they had a really good class that they lost. But Peyton DeLang has really stepped up for Corsica Stickney, and they're gonna give it all they can when they play the number 1 seed on Thursday. Of course, it's planned on Thursday. We'll see how this weather treats these games. Let's move to girls A and a couple of regions to watch. 2A, this is a region I've talked about all season long. Hamlin, of course, firmly in at number 1, undefeated, but then you've got Florence Henry, Flanders, Sioux Valley, Elkton, Lake Benton, several teams in that grouping that have had solid seasons. Again, it's going to be tough just to get to the Sodak 16.
Yeah, and I would say in both boys and girls basketball, this is probably the hardest region that it is probably playing around this time because I mean Hamlin I feel like is the runaway number 1 at this point. But Florence Henry Flandreau, Sioux Valley too, a younger team that I think is really playing well, and a team that I've been interested in their development since last year, when they were even younger than they were this year. So I mean there's a lot of competition in that region, and I think you could pick a few teams out of that region that potentially could go on a run in a state tournament or in a Sodak 16 game or something like that. So I think yeah, there's a lot of good teams in this region, and I definitely don't envy the teams trying to fight for those 2 spots.
Yeah, and a lot of those were planned on being played Tuesdays and Thursday. And again, we're recording this on Wednesday. A lot has happened with schedule changing. Sioux Valley, Upton, Lake Benton, they're planning on playing on the 25th now. So things getting pushed back a little bit across the state, but definitely one to watch there. in Region 2A. Let's move to Region 4A. This one is another real interesting game. Vermilion with just one loss on the season. And T Area, one of these teams that has played 7 AA opponents this year, find themselves in the number 4 spot, and they have to face Vermilion for a chance to advance to the SODAC 16. I mean, you got to beat the good teams if you're going to make it anyway, but might as well start now, I guess, right?
Yeah, it's a tough position to be in, but I think both T Area and Vermilion are in positions where they feel like we could win a state championship. So it's you got to factor that in when if you're gonna do that, you got to beat the best team in the class or maybe the second best team in the class because right now Hamlin I believe is the best team in the class. But I mean it's tough to do it this time of year because even though this is playoff time, I feel like this isn't for a lot of coaches the time where it's like, okay, we're playing our best basketball because everybody says state tournament for we got to be playing our best basketball by the state tournament. We're still a couple weeks away from the state tournament. So a lot of these teams, in their eyes probably feel a little bit incomplete. So it's not the best time to get them, but it forces you to maybe, I guess, sort of open your eyes early to, wow, this is playoff time and we got to start playing at a high level. So, I think this will be a good game, better than the record suggest that they are, but it's I also, think that whoever wins this game is going in with a lot of momentum into the SODAC 16.
Yeah, exactly. This would be a marquee win for either team at this point. I know both of these two teams didn't necessarily want to see each other at this point in the playoffs, but they're going to go into it with a good attitude. I know that they're going to be, just excited to say, hey, we'll beat whoever steps in front of us. And speaking of stepping in front of us in Region 5, that's another interesting one because Mount Vernon Plankinton, this is a team that has had some good individual talent over the last couple of years. And of course, Emily Fox, the future SDSU player, a junior on that team, and Reagan Russ, they've got some good talent, but they're going to face a really tough team in Wagner. Again, Wagner's going to have to earn their spot in the SODAC 16 in Region 5A.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of nuts. We do these rankings throughout the year and we try to just say, oh, this team is better than this team, this better this team, and one night can really take a team that we think could potentially make a run at the state tournament out of the running completely before we even get to March. So that's it's playoff basketball. That's how it works. But it's pretty crazy once we start talking about some teams that we had pretty high hopes for coming into the year.
Definitely some stuff to watch. Let's get into AA basketball now, where we've got a little time before we hit the playoffs, but you just look at the top of AA and I'm struck by just how many teams are in the mix, how many teams have beaten up on each other. All these teams at the top of Class AA have at least 2 losses in the class, and most of them have 3. Then a team like Pierre lost to a North Dakota team and then 2 South Dakota teams, and O'Gorman lost to a Minnesota team and a couple of South Dakota teams, and Jefferson lost to T Area, who's not in the class, and yet have gotten number 1 votes along the way. And then you've got Brandon and Harrisburg and Stevens kind of lurking there as all teams that they feel like they can play right with those guys. And Watertown has given teams games as well. So what do you make of this crazy AA situation? You watched Jefferson and O'Gorman go at it last week.
Yeah, and I mean, when you see the number 1 and the number 5, and the number 5 gets a win and a close win, you start to realize, wow, okay, what we assumed about this class is true. It's really 1 through maybe 6, almost entirely even. And I was actually surprised that Jefferson got knocked down to number 2. Washington is the new number 1 this week, and Washington's been playing great this year, but I thought that Jefferson, to go from getting all the first place votes to, Washington jumping ahead of them, I wasn't quite sure that was what they deserved for loss to O'Gorman, where it was clearly they didn't have their best for most of the game, and O'Gorman just started hitting some shots in the end, and they were playing some really good defense. They had a really good game plan. Obviously, O'Gorman girls basketball has a long history of winning games like that. So,
That's
I
why
mean,
you can see it's so fragile. Like having all the first place votes to getting knocked out, by losing to a ranked team. But for me in double A this year, when I do the rankings every week, I almost throw out the schedules and everything that's happened more than a week ago because they're so close. I just go by how they're playing right now. And right now, O'Gorman's playing very well.
sure. Yeah. And, I think I bumped O'Gorman up a little bit too, where it was tough to at the beginning of the year where they were taking a few losses that, I noted it in my column this week, which you could read on argusleader.com for the last time.
Frame
I,
that.
but I noted that in my column this week where they started the year as Class AA's number one.
Mm-hmm.
And then they lost to Washington, and then Washington lost to whoever, and whoever lost to whoever. And it was, it's this just circle of confusion that's going on in Class AA where everybody's losing to everybody. And then, then once you get out of it, Peer has also, taken two losses to some of the top teams and also beaten two of the top teams. So, and I believe Pier is at number 3 this week too, where
It's kind of where
they've been
they've
in that
settled
spot
in
for,
here. Yeah,
yeah,
they've
they've been
settled
in
in
that
there for a
spot,
while.
with they haven't really been a part of this sort of circle of teams beating each other, at least since early in the season. So, Pier, just by nature of just not playing, some of these top teams, has actually kind of settled into their spot more than anybody else has. Even though, some of these teams have had opportunities to get really big wins against really tough opponents. But, I just think that shows just how wild this class is going to be, how incredible this state tournament is going to be if we assume that everybody who is in that top 6 gets to the state tournament, which we don't even know if that's going to be
Right.
the case. So yeah, this is quickly becoming, my favorite class to watch, throughout the late part of the season.
It's going to be a blast. Let's move over to double A boys while we're talking double A. Jefferson went against Lincoln last week. It was the big 1-versus-2 battle. I think it was everything that we thought it would be and maybe more, as Jefferson played some great defense on JT Rock. Rock still came up with 15 shots and 16 points, but it didn't seem like he took over the game. And then you had this Jefferson team the next day lose to Washington in an epic defensive battle, I guess you'd call it, where two teams, neither of them went over 40 points. What do you make of what Jefferson's been through in the last week of play here, Michael?
Yeah, I mean, that's I wasn't even sure if they had a game on their schedule the next day, until I actually got the results from that game against Washington, where Washington edged them out by 1 point, 39-38. And just watching that Jefferson Lincoln game, like, I would have been tired if I went to cover another game the next day. It was just such a high energy game, right down to the wire where, I sort of was joking after the game. I mean, the Jefferson student section up 4 with 12 seconds left started chanting that, they won the game. And then Lincoln guard Jack Hildenberg stole a ball that was passed into the backcourt. And then within seconds, threw up a layup. He was fouled, went to the free throw line, missed the free throw intentionally, and Lincoln got the rebound with 2.2 seconds left. I mean, like, it's not like they had to like get the rebound and throw it up. They secured it, called a timeout, and got a good shot at the buzzer to win the game when they were down 4 points with 12 seconds left. I mean, that's just, I mean, if you could play another basketball game after surviving a game like that the next day, I mean, good luck to you. But and I think that's sort of what happened in that next game where, all credit to Washington. I believe they won 4 straight after that win over Yankton last night, Tuesday. We were recording this Wednesday. And I mean, neither of those teams shot really well in that game. I believe Jefferson, shot in the 20s, and Washington shot just a hair over 30% in the game overall. But yeah, it was one of those games, just a not a great efficient basketball game, but the team that wanted it more edged it out in the end. And Washington has won a lot of big games over the last week, but I definitely wouldn't, you know, knock Jefferson down for losing a game. I mean, it is their first loss of the year. So
Right. Right. They've competed hard. They've had several close games and found a way to win them all, and except just couldn't quite hit that last shot of the game against um, Washington on Saturday afternoon. Like you said, less than 24 hours after, going to one of the most exciting games of the year. But back to Washington, let's give them some credit. Obviously, what 6 wins in a row for this Washington Warrior team. They've beaten Brandon Valley, who was ranked at the time, O'Gorman, a perennial favorite, Mitchell, who was number 3 at the time, Roosevelt, who was number 5 at the time, Jefferson, who was number 1 at the time, and then Yankton, who was number 5. Like they've beaten very good teams, and they're doing it on the defensive end. They are shutting teams down. They are their makeup is not necessarily we'll find a way to outscore you. It's like we're just not going to let you score.
yeah, and sort of those low scoring games are what we saw from them earlier in the season when they were just that much behind where maybe they were experiencing something that the alternative of what Jefferson was experiencing earlier in the year where they played these close games but they edged out the win. Washington was sort of on the other end of it where they still had a steady record, they still had a good record, and they were still sort of like in receiving votes conversation throughout the year. But these types of wins against these types of teams are something that's new for Washington. But it's not surprising given their makeup. Once they sort of get into their game plan and kind of control the pace of the game. Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised when I see a team like Jefferson shoot, just around 30% against them. That seems to be Washington's zone, and that's how they're going to win games throughout the year. And they have a steady enough offense. They have good good strong presences. If not size, they have good strong players down low that could get the easy opportunities and create space and that type of stuff. So I think they could score enough. If it gets into a high scoring game, I definitely wouldn't necessarily pick them because I think that's probably off schedule for what Washington's trying to do. But yeah, I think Washington might be as good a defense as any team in Class AA, at least, what we're seeing right now.
Yeah, they get out and hound the ball and do a great job of closing out on rebounds. I mean, this is a team that's definitely going to be in the game as we march down to March. And with that being said, Class A, Class B, we'll get into more next week because they'll be into their regions. But that'll do it for us. And that'll do it for Michael McCleary. Again, just huge congratulations on a step up in your career and just very grateful for the job that you've done here at the Argus Leader. Any parting wisdom?
Yeah. I mean, I was really nervous to do this when you first reached out about this. And it's become something that I've looked forward to every single week. And it's honestly led to some of the coolest moments in my career where, people recognize me more for this show than they do for the writing that I do every single day, which, I mean, I think I'm better at the writing part, but Jason keeps on encouraging me each week that I've gotten better at this. Yeah, I mean, it's been such a privilege. It's been so cool. This is one of my favorite parts of the week every single week. So I'm sad that it's coming to an end, but I'm just happy about the experience that I've got to have.
Excellent. Well, you're a true South Dakotan, Michael McCleary. Go on and keep doing good things. For Michael McCleary, for the last time, I'm Jason Andera. We'll see you. I'll see you next week on Talkin Hoops.